and welcome to Darvanalee Designs Studio. My name's Nicole Reed and today we are doing block 2. It is called a pinwheel variation, and as you can see we've got some decent angles in this one, so let's get started. Okay, so we're about to delve into block 2 and it's called pinwheel variation. You can see here I'm still using the same color theme right throughout this quilt of red, black and white, the white being my background and the red and black being my contrasting colors. Now you're going to need a few other things as well, but first and foremost you need to head over to our blog and download your template pieces and your view of the block when it's finished, so you know what the layout is. You're also going to need a glue pen. This is a handy little tool for when we're piecing it all together. Another handy tool that I like to use is a hand press. It just saves me getting up and down from the sewing machine and the cutting table to the ironing board while I'm doing my paper piecing. So I just use this, and then once I've got the components together I then hit it with the iron. You're going to need a rotary cutter. You're also going to need some thread snips. Most importantly, you are going to need some paper scissors because we do have to cut out some paper. You're going to need to also have a piece of template plastic or a piece of cardboard with a straight edge on it so we can do our 1/4 inch seam allowances. And you're also going to need some quilting rulers. Now when I am doing my seam allowances I like to use either this one here or the longer one here. They're some of my favorite for foundation paper piecing. They're my favorite rulers. They're my go-to rulers actually. You're also going to need some pins, and if you're looking for some glass head pins we've got some of these over on our website, and you only need a couple of pins, so just to hold your fabric in place. Alrighty, so the first thing that we need to do once we've got all our tools and our templates and everything like that, we need to cut out our templates. Now when you've downloaded this you would have noticed that there are some pieces that don't look complete. That's okay, I'm going to show you what we're going to do with those and how to attach them. Okay, so you've got your templates printed out and you can see here we've got template B and then template A on this other sheet, and there's just this small piece here. So what you need to do is on the piece that has the little piece on the bottom of template B, there's a dotted line there. We're actually just going to trim that off. Now if you've got any scrapbooking rotary cutters, just use that, or you can use your scissors. So I'm going to just grab my ruler and I'm just going to place it on to that dotted line there, so you can see that there's just a dotted line, and I'm going to place that right up against it, so I'll be cutting on that. And I'm just going to grab my paper cut rotary cutter and I'm just going to trim that excess off. So now that I've cut that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my glue pen and I'm just going to, in the seam allowance there where that dotted line is, I'm just going to put a line of glue, just like so. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to, you can see on your template, so if you can't see it on camera, have a look at your template. You can see that there's about 1/4 inch, there's a lighter line and a dark line go into that seam allowance. You're going to align those two lines up and you're going to align this straight edge up on that little dotted line. So you can see there it's creating our block. Give that a press with your fingers to make sure that it's in place, and then you are okay to cut that out. Now we don't use sticky tape or anything like that because we've got to sew through it and it can gum up your machine. So this glue is the glue that I'm using, or your glue stick that you're using won't gum up your machine, so you'll be okay with that. And then all you're going to do is cut around your piece, get rid of your rubbish, and there's your template. Okay, so that's A and B cut out, and now we've got to do exactly the same thing with template D. So what I'm going to do again, I'm just going to lay my piece down here and I'm going to cut the smaller end. I'm aligning on that dotted line at the bottom, and you will notice that there is some writing there as well, and there's a little D3 that you'll end up chopping off, so that's okay. Just get rid of that excess paper, and then again you're going to line them up. So grab your glue pen and just put a nice little line of glue there. taking your lines and lining them all up, your straight edge onto that dotted line, and making sure that your faint line and your darker inner line are lining up, just like so. Give it a bit of a press, and then you can just separate that from template C. Okay, so we're going to start working on template A. So first of all, I want you just to have a look at your sheet here that has the colorings on them, and you can see that the black is the center square, and then you've got your points that are red. So that's what is on template A, these little triangles. Okay, they are actually going to be red, and the rest of it is actually going to be white. So the first thing that we need to do, just like we did in block 1, is we need to flip our piece over, grab our glue pen, put a little dollop there, and then you would have had some scraps left over from block 1. If you don't, that's fine. We are going to use some of those blocks. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get a piece of the scrap that was in there, and I'm going to align that right where it needs to go. So just there like that, you can see that I've got enough fabric to cover the piece of paper. Then I'm going, and that is right sides up. Then you're going to flip that over, and you're going to get your piece of template plastic, and you're going to line that up on that line that is going to join A2 and A1. Okay, pop that there, and then you're just going to flip your paper back over. You're going to grab your ruler and your rotary cutter. You're going to line your ruler up on the edge of the paper, so you see there that we've got that edge of the paper up against the card, or the template plastic, whichever you're using. Then we're going to align our 1/4 inch mark on our ruler on the edge of the paper there, and then we're just going to get rid of that excess. Again, don't throw away your scraps, put them in a little scrap bucket, especially for this project, and then that way you can utilize some of those scraps. Okay, so now we're going to flip that paper back over, and again we are going to turn it back over. And this time we need to work with a red fabric. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to align the edge of raw edge of my red fabric with the raw edge of the white fabric, right sides together at this point. Okay, and then you're just going to pop a pin in it, and just like I did in the first block, I'm going to flip it back over and head over to the sewing machine, and I'm going to stitch on that line there, not on either side of it, but actually on the line. So I'm heading over to the sewing machine, and I'll do that. Don't forget to reduce your stitch length down to a 1.9 to give you a nice small stitch, and that way that will perforate the printer paper that we're using. Okay, so we've stitched that down. Now we're going to flip our fabric over. We're going to get our hand press, and we are just going to give that a little press. Again, we are going to flip our page back over, and now we are going to put A3 on. So we grab our template plastic again, and we put that on the line that is joining A2 to A3. We flip our paper back over onto the template plastic, or the card if you're using cardboard. We get our ruler, and on that 1/4 inch mark we put it against the paper like so, and you can see under there, you can see the 1/4 inch seam allowance is there. Then basically what I do is I just trim that excess off, just like so. Now you can see here that I've gone way past the paper. At this point I can actually just turn this around, remove the template plastic, and I'm just going to, up against the edge of the paper, get rid of those bits that are hanging out. Push the paper back, flip it over, and you can see there is our first point of our star. So now we need to attach A3, and it is a background fabric. So I'm just going to have a look through my scraps and see if I've got something that will fit, and I need to cut some extra fabric. So I'm just going to grab my fabric, and I'm going to cut a square, and you could get away with actually just measuring this one at this point, and I would actually cut a 5-inch square. You can cut 2 of those because it'll be the same for the other end as well. I've cut my fabric now, and now I need to put these right sides together like so, and I'm going to pop a pin in that. And I know that I don't have to worry about trimming a 1/4 inch after I've done this one because I've already cut that. I'll pop a pin in, and then I'm going to flip it over, making sure that all my fabrics are laying away from where I'm stitching and there's just the seam allowance there, making sure it's all flat, and then I'm going to sew on that line again, making sure I reverse at the beginning and at the end. Okay, so we've sewn that on. I'm going to flip that over, and again, if you find that your fabric is moving on you on these end pieces, just grab your glue stick and just put a dot there and a dot there, and that is actually going to hold it into place. And then just get your hand presser or your mini iron and just give that seam a little bit of a press, and then we can turn it around and flip it over, grab our template plastic, place it on where A1 and A4 are going to join, bring it back, again get your ruler, align your 1/4 inch mark on the edge of the folded paper, and then just remove that excess fabric. Flip the paper back over, remove your template plastic, then grab another square of white fabric because we know that that is background. Then we're going to align those raw edges, grab a pin, place it in, flip it over and stitch on that line. Okay, so that is our last piece of template A is all sewn on. So now what we can do is press that seam. Again, if you've got a bit of movement in your fabric, put a couple of little dots of fabric near the end. Especially with the bigger pieces of fabric, it can move on you a little bit. Now we're going to flip that over. Then we're going to get our quilting rulers, and we're going to line. See this dark line here? That is where we're going to put our 1/4 inch mark on our ruler this time. Okay, and then I'm just going to slowly remove that excess fabric, the excess paper, and just slowly slide my ruler up to get rid of it all. Then I will turn, and again I place my 1/4 inch seam allowance there on the darker line, and then I'm just going to get rid of that. And you can see here I've also aligned my 1/4 inch up here, so I can just go along there to the end of the ruler, and then I'll just line it up on this side and at the top. You can see there, making sure that it's all sitting in the correct position, and then I trim off that excess, and there we go, all our excess is gone. And that is template 1 done. So set that aside and then grab template B, and you can see here that we've just got 3 pieces to template B. So we're going to again start at B1, and we will flip our page over. We put a dollop of glue there, grab some white fabric, then place that on to make sure that it's going to fit with the right sides facing up, and then I'm going to flip that over, grab my template plastic, pop it on where B1 and B2 are meeting, onto that dark line just there, move the paper out of the way, then grab our ruler, place the 1/4 inch mark on the edge of the paper, and trim off the excess. Flip our paper back over, take away the template plastic, and then out of your scrap bin from your last block, align your edges, raw edges together, your straight raw edges, pop a pin in, head over to the sewing machine and stitch that into place. So flipping it over, and on that line there you're going to stitch it. Okay, so we've stitched that into place. Now you can get rid of your long threads as well. Always trim them off with each step as well. And then you're going to roll your fabric back over, grab your little hand press, give it a little bit of a press, then you're going to flip this back over again, not worrying about the excess fabric out here. If it's getting in your way, trim it off just up to the edge of the paper, that's fine. But we're going to grab our template plastic again, put it on the line that's adjoining B1 and B2 to B3. We're going to turn that back, going to grab our ruler again, aligning that 1/4 inch mark on our ruler to the edge of the paper, and then we can just trim off that excess. Don't forget to put your scraps into a basket or something, because you will be able to use them throughout the quilt. Okay, so now we are ready to put on some black fabric. So I can see here that I need a decent sized square. So if I'm not too sure, I just grab my ruler and I just pop that on, remembering that I need to have 1/4 inch back down in this way as well. So I'm looking at a 5.5 inch square. So I'm just going to cut that off my black fabric. Okay, so I've got my piece of black fabric. So now I have already trimmed my 1/4 inch seam allowance. So now I know I can pop this on here, and that is going to give me my 1/4 inch. I'll pop a pin in there as well so it doesn't move on me, and then I'm going to flip it over, making sure that my fabrics are all facing over to the left hand side and not under here. And we're going to stitch on that line. Now don't forget to do a reverse at the beginning at the end, and that'll just give you some added security. Okay, so we've sewn that on. Get rid of any of your long threads so they're not in the way, and you're going to roll your fabric back now so it's facing right sides up. Give that a quick little press with your hand presser, and now we can actually trim this block up. So just grabbing your quilting ruler, again just lining up your 1/4 inch on that solid line on the inside, lining up on this line and lining up on this line here. So I know now that I'm ready to cut. And I do the same all the way around. And there we go, template B is now complete. So set that aside, and then we are on to template C, and as you can see this only has one seam. So basically we just grab our white fabrics and see what will fit on there for us. Try to use up your scraps if you can. If it doesn't work for this block, it'll work for another block. Okay, so I can see that that's going to cover that whole section of C1. I turn that over, and again I just line that up on my template with a little bit of glue. That'll hold it in place for me, making sure that I'm getting the template covered, including the seam allowance on the outer edge of the block, and this will be facing right sides up. Then we're going to flip it over. We're going to grab our template plastic, put that on the line that's adjoining the two different spots, grab our ruler, aligning that 1/4 inch mark up onto the edge of the paper, and then just using our rotary cutter, cut that excess off. Grab some red fabric, flipping that over, align our straight edges like so, popping a pin in, and then heading over to the sewing machine and sewing that straight line. And then you're going to repeat that, exactly what we've just done in the last ones, with template D. Okay, so we've finished template D, and you can see here we've got template A, B, C, and D. So now we're ready for the block construction. So just for the moment, just push away template A and template D, and you're going to be left with these two here, which is template B and template C. So what we need to do is now create these into one long piece, the same as A and D. So all you're going to do is take template C and place it on top of template B, aligning our raw edges over here, and then just placing a pin in so it doesn't move on you, and then you're going to actually just sew along this line here, starting off the edge and finishing off the edge with a back stitch on either end. And then that way we will have a complete piece and we can sew the components together. Okay, so now you can see we've got 3 rows and we need to sew those rows together. So basically we're going to take row 1 and we're going to lay it on top of row B, and you can see here that there is a seam on row B, and we just want to make sure that those actually align up. So I am just going to nest them how I would normally do it for any sort of patchworking. They are aligning up, and if you're not sure, you can just lift your row B aside and you can see there that they are actually aligning up. So I'm just going to place a pin into those seams, and I'm going to do the same up at this end here as well. And if I open them up, I can see that they are actually aligning up pretty good. So I'm happy with that. And then I will put a pin in the end here and at this end as well. And that way I'm making sure that all my raw edges are aligning and none of my fabric is curled up or anything like that underneath. And I just pop a pin in there, and then down this end I do the same thing. If you find your fabric is moving around too much, just put a little bit of glue pen on there and that'll stop that from happening for you. Alright, so we're now going to go to the sewing machine and we're going to start at this end. We're going to do a back stitch. We're going to go all the way along that line there and then do a back stitch back here. Okay, so that is now gone together and you can see that it's just aligning beautifully. And now we're going to get row 3 and we're going to do exactly the same thing. Lay it on top of row B and place our pins in and then sew our stitch, sew along that line. Just making sure that all your raw edges are aligning. Placing a pin at this end and then also at this end so they don't shift on you. And then again, starting at this end, reversing, going all the way along this line and then doing a back stitch down here as well. And there we go, that is block 2 all done and dusted. Set that aside, leaving the paper on the back of it so that way it all stays, it won't fray on you, and you can set it aside until we're ready to put all our blocks together. Okay, so thank you very much for joining me today. I really do hope that you enjoyed our tutorial on the pinwheel variation. As you can see, it's a nice, quick, simple block to go together, and we've got those beautiful angles and points so we won't lose those. So if you like this video today, give us a thumbs up down below, hit that subscribe button if you're new here, and ring the little bell beside it, and that way you won't miss out on any future posts. Also, we love to hear from you, so leave us a comment down below and tell us what you thought. And for those that don't know, my name's Nicole Reed from Darvanalee Designs Studio, and I'll see you all again next time. Bye for now!